Imagine holding this piece of glass, maybe centuries old, washed up on a beach. Inside, a message that's traveled across oceans. Today on the All Sorts Podcast's Deep Dive, we're getting into that exact world, messages in bottles.
Yeah, it's a topic that really sparked your curiosity and ours, too. We've gathered, well, quite a collection of sources to explore it.
We really have. We're looking at the science, the amazing human stories, that kind of romantic ideal it represents.
Exactly. It connects so many things. You've got the hard science. How does this thing even float around?
Yeah.
But then the deeply personal stories, hope, survival.
And that bit of magic, maybe, finding something against all odds.
Right. So for this deep dive, we've got a popular mechanics article looking at the science. How long can they last? What affects the journey?
Yeah.
Also a Reddit thread, which is great for the modern take. Some funny stories, too.
Oh, Reddit always delivers on that front.
Doesn't it just?
Yeah.
Then there's a piece from the University of Washington about Curtis Ebbsmeyer. He calls himself a filter feeder on floating objects. Brilliant.
Ah, I love that. Using junk, basically, to study ocean currents.
Including messages in bottles. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll also touch on fiction, like Nicholas Sparks' book, naturally, and an article from Boat Gold Coast that gives us the history from science experiments way back to tales of love and survival.
And we can't forget the music, right? The Police.
Definitely got to mention the Police. So our mission here is to pull all these threads together, figure out what's most interesting, and share it with you.
Okay, let's dive in. Where do we start? The science, how these things actually move.
Yeah, let's start there. The popular mechanics piece kicks off with this insight from an MIT professor, Thomas Peacock. And basically he says a bottle's journey is all down to where you throw it in.
Right, location, 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 even at sea.
Pretty much. Some ocean areas have, like, really predictable currents. Highways, almost. Others are just chaotic, full of eddies, whirlpools, that sort of thing.
So it's not just one big bathtub swirling around.
Not at all. And they use this amazing example, you mentioned it earlier, that 101-year-old beer bottle found in the Baltic Sea.
101 years. That's just mind-blowing. How did they even trace it?
Well, that's part of the story. They actually tracked down the original sender's granddaughter. But the key thing, scientifically, was where it was found, the Baltic.
Okay, why the Baltic?
Because its currents are, relatively speaking, more predictable and contained compared to, say, the huge Atlantic or the Pacific. It's sort of a smaller system.
Gotcha. So if you toss that same bottle out in the middle of the Atlantic, good luck.
Yeah, Peacock basically says predicting its path there would be nearly impossible. He talks about this mixture of flow structures, especially mid-Pacific, eddies, vortices. It's complex.
Sounds messy.
It is. And that chaos is exactly what fascinates Curtis Ebbsmeyer, the oceanographer from the University of Washington article. He studies currents using, well, anything that floats, wants them.
The filter feeder.
That's him. And he points out something wild. You can drop two objects in the exact same spot at the same time, and they can end up in completely different parts of the world.
Wow. Okay, so much for my image of a bottle just sailing straight to shore.
Yeah, it's more like ocean pinball. But Ebbsmeyer also talks about the bigger patterns, these huge ocean gyres.
Right, the big rotating currents, like the Gulf Stream.
Exactly. Driven by wind, the Earth's rotation. They're like massive conveyor belts. The Gulf Stream, the Kuroshio current off Japan. If a bottle gets caught in one of those, it can travel thousands and thousands of miles.
Okay, so there are some highways out there.
There are. But even then, it's not straightforward. Storms are a big factor.
Makes sense.
Ebbsmeyer notes they can just blow stuff completely off course. Push a bottle out of a main current into a countercurrent, maybe even into a whole different gyre system.
So a storm could send a message meant for, say, Europe off towards Siberia instead.
Potentially, yeah. If it gets shunted into the Alaska current or something, it's really unpredictable.
And people have been trying to figure this out for ages, haven't they? Using drift bottles.
Oh, yeah. The Wikipedia article mentions the U.S. Coast and Geodetic Survey. They use drift bottles systematically from, like, 1846 all the way up to 1966.
That's over a century of chucking bottles in the sea for science.
Pretty much. It was the best tech they had for tracking surface currents before satellites and fancy buoys came along. Ebbsmeyer calls his method the old-fashioned way, but there's still value in seeing where actual stuff ends up.
So with all this chaos and distance, what are the actual chances of a message being found? Must be tiny.
Well, yeah, the odds aren't great. The Drift Bottle Project they started in 2000 found only about 1 in 25 of the bottles they dropped were ever reported back.
1 in 25. Wow.
And Wikipedia cites other studies, some showing recovery rates as low as 3%, especially in the Pacific, where you drop it makes a huge difference, obviously. But yeah, it's a long shot.
So why do so few make it? What happens to the rest?
A bunch of things. The Drift Bottle Project and Wikipedia list them out. They can sink, obviously, get buried in sand on a beach somewhere, wash up on a coast where nobody ever goes.
Or the message just gets wrecked by seawater.
Totally. Becomes unreadable. And popular mechanics brings up marine life. Things start growing on the bottle.
Barnacles.
Exactly. Barnacles are heavy, they can weigh it down, make it sink. Depends on the buoyancy of whatever decides to hitch a ride.
But seaweed's okay.
Seaweed's okay, apparently. It floats. So the advice from scientists in that article is kind of funny but practical. Aim for predictable currents. Use dark beer bottles.
Why dark bottles?
Protects the paper inside from sunlight, maybe.
Yeah.
And roll the message inward. And definitely don't glue barnacles on before you send it.
Good tip. Note to self. No pre-attached barnacles. But, thinking about today, wouldn't a message in a bottle just look like trash? With all the plastic already out there?
That's a really good point from the Reddit thread. A lot of people worry it would just get lost in, like, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch or something. Someone joked about ordering stuff online and asking for it to be shipped in a bottle because it might be faster.
Ouch. Dark humor.
Yeah. But interestingly, others on that same thread said finding messages in bottles is still a hobby for people. Like actively looking for them, writing back.
Really? People still do that?
Seems so. One person mentioned an article claiming the average time a message is adrift before being found is only a few months. Which sounds optimistic, maybe?
Maybe very optimistic, given the 1 in 25 stat.
Right. But it shows people are still engaged with it, still looking. Beachcombing detectives, perhaps.
I like that. So the human connection element is still alive, even if the odds are long.
Yeah, despite the low overall recovery rate, which Wikipedia puts at less than 3% sometimes, it really is a long shot. Guinness did that huge publicity stunt in 1959.
Guinness, the brewery.
Yep. They dumped 150,000 specially sealed bottles into the Atlantic and Caribbean. They figured the bottles themselves could last 500 years.
Wow. Did they find many?
Some were found, yeah.
Yeah.
Even decades later, Inuit hunters found some in Canada. But, the vast majority vanished, lost to the sea.
Guinness, the accidental oceanographers. Okay, so we've got the science, the odds. Let's shift to the stories, the history. That feels like the real heart of it sometimes.
Absolutely. And the history goes way, way back. Boat Gold Coast traces it to the Greek philosopher Theophrastus around 310 BCE.
310 BCE, what was he doing?
Trying to prove a theory. He tossed sealed bottles into the sea to see if the Atlantic actually flowed into the Mediterranean.
Ah, a very early oceanographic experiment. Wonder if he got any back.
Probably not. But it shows the idea isn't new. Then there's Christopher Columbus.
Oh, yeah.
During a massive storm on his way back from the Americas, he apparently wrote down details of his discoveries, sealed them in a wooden barrel, and threw it overboard. He thought the ship was going down.
Wow, imagine finding that message. History in a barrel.
Incredible, right? And then, as we mentioned, it became more scientific later with the Coast Survey studying currents. But by the late 1800s, finding them was just popular. Newspapers had columns about messages found.
Like a public bulletin board delivered by the tide.
Sort of. People must have been fascinated, like finding a little time capsule.
Yeah.
And some of the stories are just amazing.
Okay, give us some highlights.
Well, Boat Gold Coast mentions the confirmed oldest one ever found. Thrown from a German ship in the Indian Ocean in 1886.
1886?
Yeah, part of a research project.
Wow.
It washed up in Australia in 2018. That's 132 years later.
132 years. That's just incredible, floating around all that time.
Isn't it? And then there's maybe the longest distance traveled, a bottle chucked into the North Sea in 2011 by an 8-year-old kid.
Okay.
Found in Australia 17 months later, nearly 16,000 kilometers.
Whoa! From the North Sea to Australia, that little bottle saw the world.
It really did. Then you get the really poignant ones, like the message from a young guy, Jeremiah Burke, on the Titanic.
Oh, wow.
He threw it overboard as the ship was sinking. It was found, washed ashore near his family home in Ireland about a year later. Just a final goodbye.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. But also kind of beautiful they got that last connection.
It is. And then there's the completely unexpected happy ending. The lonely Swedish sailor, Aki Viking, sent a message in 1956 addressed to someone beautiful and far away. 2 years later, he gets a reply from a young woman named Paulina in Sicily.
No way.
Yes way. They started writing, fell in love, got married. The sea played matchmaker.
That's movie stuff right there. Proof that sometimes the long shot pays off.
It really is. But they weren't all romantic or tragic. Some were literal lifesavers.
Like distress calls.
Exactly. There are accounts of refugees from South America in 2005 and the crew of a pirated Italian ship in 2011 using bottled messages to send for help, and they were rescued because of them.
Amazing. A low-tech lifeline.
Yeah, though not all messages were quite so positive. Some were used for propaganda.
Oh, so?
The University of Washington piece mentions Taiwanese frogmen aiming bottles with propaganda messages at mainland China.
Okay, that's different.
And Curtis Ebsmeyer himself helped decipher a message found in '91 calling for the release of a Chinese dissident, Wei Jingsheng. So, political uses too.
It's just such a versatile, basic form of communication, isn't it? Science, personal pleas, politics.
And, of course, that feeds into culture. The romance of it all. Edgar Allan Poe wrote about it.
MS found in a bottle.
That's the one. And then, much later, Nicholas Sparks' Message in a Bottle. That book and the movie really cemented the romantic image for a lot of people.
Yeah, it definitely did. Apparently, it was inspired by something his own father did after his mother died.
That's right. This idea of finding a lost love letter, this intense connection sparked by chance. It really resonated.
It's a powerful trope. And speaking of powerful, the song.
Ah, yes. Can't avoid it. The Police, 1979, Message in a Bottle.
Their first UK #1, right? Classic track.
Absolutely. That reggae rock, new wave sound. Sting said it was basically about loneliness, sending out an SOS to the world.
Just a castaway, an island lost at sea. Yeah, it captures that feeling perfectly.
Seems I'm not alone at being alone.
Line. Finding out everyone feels that isolation sometimes. It's such a universal feeling.
It really is. The song, the stories, the science,
Yeah.
It all weaves together. Definitely. So wrapping things up, what we've seen navigating through all this is that messages in bottles are, well, they're way more than just a romantic cliche.
For sure. They've been real tools for science. They've carried incredible history, immense personal emotion, all in this fragile glass container tossed into the waves.
From tracking massive ocean currents to sending a final goodbye, or even sparking a romance across continents. It's kind of amazing what they represent. That simple act holds so much weight.
It really does. And, just like one of those bottles sets off on its journey, hoping to connect. That's kind of what we try to do here at the All Sorts podcast, connect with you, bring all sorts of stories and insights your way.
Well put.
So if you've enjoyed this deep dive, if you liked exploring the science and the stories with us, maybe cast your own digital bottle. Like, share, subscribe to the All Sorts podcast on YouTube.
It really does help our stories reach new shores, find other curious minds out there.
Absolutely. Your click makes a difference. And we've got plenty of other deep dives already out there in the podcast sea for you to explore. Check them out. And you can always follow our voyages, share your thoughts on X, Instagram threads.
Yeah, join the community. We love hearing from you. It helps us figure out where to explore next.
It really does. Your engagement keeps us going, bringing you more stuff on, well, all sorts of things.
So maybe a final thought to leave folks with. In this age where we're all hyper-connected, instantly, digitally, what is it about this specific thing, sending a physical message alone into the vastness? Why does that still grab our imagination so much?
That's a good question. Is it? Maybe a desire for something more tangible, less predictable, a bit of serendipity?
Perhaps. A quiet hope sent out into the world. A reminder that even a small gesture against huge odds can still carry enormous meaning. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What message would you trust to the sea?